This is Cody Deaner, and you are listening to another wrestling podcast. Just give her.
It's time for another wrestling podcast.
The measuring stick just changed around here, buddy. You're looking at
the best there is, the best there was, and the best there ever will be.
They got the answers. I change the question.
The cream of the crop. Nobody does it better. These are the best in the world, brother. These are the best at what they do.
When we talk about the legends of the sport, there's only two in my book.
Another wrestling podcast.
Another wrestling podcast. Now can you dig that, sucker?
All right. Welcome to another wrestling podcast. This is episode 92. I'm Steve Credo.
And I'm Jonathan Benjamin.
Jonathan, it's another wrestling podcast. We've been doing this for 92 episodes strong. Once every week for the past 92 weeks. Amazing.
It's unheard of.
Unheard of.
We have a great show in store for you today. Joining us is none other than Cody Deaner.
Jonathan, we're coming off the Global Force Wrestling show that just happened here in Poughkeepsie last Friday. What a show, Jonathan. I mean, we never got to witness any Global Force Wrestling ever. This was the Northeast debut in Poughkeepsie. What did you think? I mean, it was a great time, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We got to basically spend time with the entire Global Force roster. It was their first Northeast tour, and absolutely amazing. The only issue was we had some snow. We were good on Friday in Poughkeepsie, but I know that they had to battle some snow, and so they'll actually be back soon wrestling in New Jersey. So you should definitely go out and see Global Force Wrestling live. I hope they come back to the Poughkeepsie or the Northeast so we can, kind of see them again. And Steve, what were some of your favorite parts of the show?
Before I get to that real quick, like you said, they're going to be wrestling this Saturday in Rahway because they were snowed out last Saturday. And any of the fans that came out too Friday, it is a disappointment if you come to see somebody and they don't make it. But, hey, you got to understand things happen. When you work in a wrestling show, like we got to work backstage with this, and it's phenomenal. There's a lot of gears in motion. There's a lot of things happening. Where guys, if they don't make it, the show must go on. Things have to happen and things change. So they have to change the lineup. It changed, and I think they did the best with what they could. And it was still a remarkable show. Before that, Jonathan, we had our first VIP exclusive experience with the fans tour where we got to ask a Q&A session, which you'll be able to find on our YouTube in a little bit. That was really great. We got to be in the ring and got to ask the champions of Global Force Wrestling some questions, and even got the fans around the ring to ask some questions to the fans that honestly, Jonathan, I don't think I've been to any other show that you were able to ever do this. And I hear Jeff Jarrett loved it so much that he probably plans on doing this in future shows. So if you see it on future shows, you know where it happened first, right?
Exactly. We got to speak in the ring with none other than Christina Von Eerie, who's the first Global Force Wrestling Women's Champion. We got to talk to the Next Gen Champion, Sanjay Dutt, and we got to talk to the Global Force Wrestling Champion, Nick Aldis. It was an amazing time. We want to thank all the fans that came out and supported us and Global Force Wrestling. I hope that this was not the only partnership that we had with Global Force Wrestling. Some great talent and some great people involved with this company. I just hope that the success just keeps coming for these guys.
Yeah, and all in all, at the end of the day, Jonathan, we're fans of pro wrestling. That's why we do this show. And it's great to work with any company. But this is what we love doing. We love in our hometown. We love to, come out there and work with all the fans, meet the fans, talk to the fans, and, try to get them involved as well. And that's why we're here doing our show. So we always ask you to call us, to email us, to Facebook us, to tweet us, because we want to get your opinions on how you felt. So if you guys went out to the GFW last Friday, let us know if we saw you. If you got to ask any questions, let us know about your experience. And overall, it was just a great experience, and I can't wait for the next show, Jonathan.
Today's show is brought to you by
Hey, Jonathan, I know obviously you're a big pro wrestling fan. The last time I hung out with you, you had a lot of unique pro wrestling items on you and with you. Where do you get all this merchandise?
Well, Steve, for once in your life, you can be just like me, and all of our listeners out there can be just like me as well. I get my one-of-a-kind wrestling merchandise from ProWrestlingCrate.com. Now, Pro Wrestling Crate is one of the latest crate subscriptions that you can get, but the best part about this is it's so unique and different than any of the other crates that are out there. Each month, they're curated by a wrestler or a certain group involved with wrestling, and everything in the crate kind of revolves around a certain theme. So the first one had to do with Mick Foley. The second one had to do with Extreme Wrestling in Philadelphia. The third one is being curated by none other than the guys over at Kayfabe News, which should be amazing. But you get shirts, you get buttons, you get pins, you get coasters, you get everything, and most of this stuff is one of a kind. If you don't get it, if you don't subscribe to Pro Wrestling Crate, then you really aren't going to be able to get this stuff. And if you want any more information, be sure to go on over to our friends at Pro Wrestling Crate. You can follow them on Twitter at PWCrate. They also have an Instagram, who doesn't these days, at Pro Wrestling Crate. And you can go to their website and sign up, which we highly suggest you do, at ProWrestlingCrate.com.
Hey, now I know.
Joining us today on the show, you saw him at Global Force Wrestling. He is kind of on fire right now. Joining us is none other than Cody Deaner. Today we have a first on the show. We would like to welcome a longtime veteran in the wrestling business, a former TNA wrestler, and most recently a member of the Global Force Wrestling roster. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Cody Deaner.
Hey guys, are you guys gonna dub over like a big pop, like a Road Warrior pop? Can you guys do that?
Absolutely.
So after you see my name and before I start talking, you can kind of have like a huge pop.
Of course.
Like the one I usually get when I come to the ring.
Yes.
Put that in, and then we're good to go. Thanks for having me, guys.
I want to congratulate you, too, because if our calculations are correct, on January 24th, 2016, that will mark 16 years for you in the business. Looking back over a long career like that, are you proud of what you have been able to accomplish thus far in your career?
Yeah, I'm very proud of it. And I also feel like an old bastard, too. Because, like, 16 years, I mean, man, it just seems like such a long time. And I actually, the other day, just a couple weekends ago, I had a guy come up to me, a grown man, 20-something years old, comes up to me and says, "Hey, I've been watching you for a long time. I used to watch you at the Polish Hall in Niagara Falls at the Fighting Spirit Pro Wrestling shows, which is where I started my career." I was like, "Oh, cool. Did you used to come to the shows and, get drunk with all your buddies?" Because there used to be a section of drunk guys that were just rowdy and have a good time. And go, "Oh, you used to come in with your buddies and, have a good time?" And he goes, "Nah, man. I was 6. I was like, "Oh, dude, you're making me feel old." So like I'm meeting like people who literally grown up watching me wrestle on the independent scene since they were 6 years old. That's when I started to watch wrestling. So there's people out there that are now. There's actually a guy in Rochester who is a wrestler now that used to go to the shows with his dad when he was a kid. He was like 5 or 6 years old. He would go to the shows and watch me wrestle, and now he's a wrestler. He's 20 years old. It's crazy. It's crazy. So that's just kind of started to hit me the last couple of years, how long I've been around, and yeah, having guys come up to me and go, "Remember that match we had?" And I say, "Nope." I've had I've forgotten more than I can remember. But it's been a really good, fun, 16 years so far, and I want to have 16 more fun years too. So I'm ready to start that with GFW, man.
Absolutely. Now you said that you're probably most known maybe in the States for your time in TNA, but really you've been wrestling all over the place and really tearing up the indie scene as of late. Independent wrestling's got a really big showing right now. A lot of people have their eyes focused on it. What are your thoughts personally on independent wrestling these days?
I'm noticing a big shift right now. Maybe you guys are too. I don't know how long you guys have been independent wrestling fans. How long have you guys been watching indie wrestling?
For me, it's been probably at least I'd say close to 10 years now.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So have you guys noticed the change from 10 years ago to now?
I've only noticed it in the past probably, I'd say, 4 to 5 years up here.
Yes. Yeah. I'm noticing there's definitely a shift in the way it's perceived by the fans, which I think a lot of it has to do with how it's being perceived by the WWE, because they're starting to sign top indie talent now. Whereas 10 years ago, when I was trying to get a contract with the WWE, I couldn't get signed because I was an indie wrestler.
Yeah.
Because I was an indie guy, they weren't looking at me because they wanted to hire guys that were only a couple years in the business, weren't really fully trained or ready, so that they could send to their developmental territory and put into their cookie cutter factory and then just pump them out. They're not doing that anymore. They're actually taking guys that have gotten over in other places and signing these top indie talents. And I think that's really helped kind of build, or I guess help other fans realize that there is a wrestling world outside of the WWE. So fans that maybe watch NXT or WWE and then realize, oh, who is this guy? They're saying that he's a 15-year veteran, like a Kevin Owens or something. They're saying he's been wrestling for 12 years or whatever it is. And he just showed up on Raw. What are they talking about? And then they research the guy, and then they're opened up to all these awesome independent promotions in Canada, United States, and all over the world. It's really exciting. I've actually made the most money in wrestling that I ever made in 2015. It was my best year financially in pro wrestling was last year. And that includes my time with TNA, my run there. So it's good, man. It's financially, it's good. And, it's exciting as a wrestler and really exciting time as a fan.
Nice. Now, you are also wrestling on the carnival circuit. How did this opportunity come about, and what do you enjoy about wrestling at carnivals?
Yeah. For any of the listeners that are listening to that question, they're probably going, what the hell are you talking about? the carnival circuit. It's not a common thing that for a lot of wrestlers or wrestling fans know about, but yeah, I'm part of an organization here in Canada called Classic Championship Wrestling that in the summer and in the fall travel with a carnival and do wrestling shows right beside the Ferris wheel and right beside the cotton candy machine. And, you got the tilt-a-whirl, the Ferris wheel, and then a wrestling ring. Nice. And it's like a throwback to when wrestling actually started. Wrestling started in a carnival, and it's pretty cool. It's fun. It's a lot of kids, a lot of families. It's not if you are a hardcore PWG fan, you're probably not gonna love the show that you're gonna watch because you're not gonna see all the high spots and stuff that you're gonna see in a PWG show, but you are gonna see just a really fun family wrestling show, and it's been a chance for me to build a very loyal fan base. I get to talk to these people at the shows, high five the kids, see them one-on-one fun, talk to them. It's helped me build a fan base with them and just have a really fun time. There's nothing like a summertime show, out in the sun, getting, 100 kids screaming and yelling at you and chasing you around. It's a lot of fun, man. It's a different kind of experience, but one that I really enjoy.
Now, do you enjoy the creative freedoms that you get by not working for, say, like a WWE or one of the bigger promotions?
Yeah, it's really cool because, I get asked that a lot by, like people that aren't wrestling fans, but then realize, or would they find out I'm a wrestler and they start asking me questions. That's one question they ask me is that, do you come up with your own character or do they give it to you? I think a lot of people just think that, they just come up with this character and they hand it to you and say, here you go. You're this guy. Which isn't the case in independent wrestling at all. Mm-hmm. You come up with everything yourself. You're not handed a script by the promoter when you're doing a promo. You're not given an outline for your match. It's the creative freedom is amazing. So you're given this blank canvas, literally, and you get to go out there and try to create something. And that's what I love about wrestling, and I love doing it. I don't care if it's in front of 50 people or 5,000 people or 20,000. I've wrestled in front of those size crowds, and no matter what the size is, what, really, gets me excited is getting to create something and having whoever's watching respond to it the way I want them to respond. And when I get the freedom to do what I want to do, man, and you get the response you want, I can't even describe it, guys. It's the best kind of drug there is in the world.
Nice. Now, we spoke with Bobby Roode last week, who also happens to be a wrestling Canadian. Do you think that there is a different style, maybe, of wrestling that Canadians have versus an American style? Because I know when other wrestlers wrestle, you have like a lucha style or just all different kinds of styles. But is there maybe a difference between Canadian versus American, or no?
Maybe. I don't know. I've never thought about it in terms of style before. I do know that the Canadians are awesome wrestlers, and I'm not just biased because I'm Canadian. I've heard other people say this too, like Americans that have come, say they're from a different area of the States and they come into Canada and they're on a show and they're like, man, like everybody on the show is like in shape and is good. Like there's something about, I guess, Canadians, we breed good professional wrestlers. I don't know what it is. Uh-huh. But in terms of style, I've never really thought about it before. I guess I was thinking, as you were saying, maybe it's what we grew up on watching. Mm-hmm. It has altered our style. Like when I grew up, I didn't watch WCW and NWA. I didn't have access to that when I was young. All I got was WWF. So I got, the Northeastern feed of WWF stuff. So, I got to see Paul Orndorff and Hogan in the in the Mid-Hudson Civic Center, and all that stuff from that area. That's the stuff that I saw, but it was all WWF stuff, which is definitely a different style than the NWA. So we grew up, I guess I would say maybe we're a little bit more of a WWF style with some kind of, I guess, maybe NWA flavor to it. So, but then you've got the Stampede area. It's different, right? Because then you got Calgary and the Stampede area where they have a lot of Japanese influence there because of the Stampede guys that would always go to Japan. So it's kind of hard to say, but that's kind of my thought process. I'm just thinking out loud when you ask that question. I think if to narrow it down to one definitive style, I would say no, but I would say, man, we got a lot of really good wrestlers here.
I've been fighting the urge this entire time to say something like, "What's that all about?" Because obviously, you are Canadian and it comes through. But
what's that all about, eh?
Yeah, exactly. Now, before and after wrestling in TNA, I'm trying to stay away from TNA because I feel like you're much more than that, and that's the question. Is it frustrating for you to have so much of your wrestling identity boiled down to just your time in TNA?
Yes and no. It's partially frustrating. I'll start with the positive. It got me a lot of exposure to people who I never would have got exposed to. It was an opportunity to be on television, doing what I love doing. I love entertaining people. And I had a lot of fun in TNA. It was not a frustrating time for me. It was a lot of fun. I did what I was asked to do, and I felt like I did it really well. And the writers and my superiors and my agents and the producers all thought I did very well too. They would tell me that all the time. So I know I was doing a good job and I was having fun doing it. And I was able to gain some fans that I never would have got from before. But the negative repercussion of it is it definitely altered the perception that a lot of people have of me, where I wrestled for 8 years or so before I got a contract with TNA. I spent 8 years building a reputation, mainly in Canada, of being a really good wrestler and being a good performer and having one of the better matches, if not the best match on the card. And then when I went to TNA, I was supposed to pretend that I didn't know how to wrestle, and I was just like a fan that won a contest with ODB and had to learn how to wrestle at the last minute and was thrown in there, and it was supposed to look like I didn't know how to wrestle. So that hurt the perception because a lot of fans actually thought that was true, that I was just a guy that got hired that didn't know how to wrestle. I guess I did such a good job of convincing a lot of people. They thought I didn't know what I was doing. So that hurt me. And that there's a lot of people that just know, oh yeah, I remember that guy. He was funny. He had a couple funny interviews or did a couple funny things. But they've never got to see me really get in the ring and go. Which is why I created partially the reason I created the video that I did, that I had my fans hound Jeff Jarrett with, and why I want to be given this opportunity with Global Force Wrestling is I want the world and the perception of me to change. I don't want everyone to when they think Cody Deaner, to just think, oh, comedy guy that doesn't really know how to wrestle. Because I am more than that. It's not to say I'm not proud of what I did, because I think that what I did was fun and I really liked it. And I think it could have, if given the opportunity, it could have morphed and led into something further where I could have eventually been given the opportunity to show what I can do in the ring. But I never ended up getting that opportunity in TNA. I was released before I could do that. So I do want to change people's perceptions and show them what I really can do.
Sure. Now, speaking of perceptions, while you were there, you were rocking a pretty sweet mullet. How did the non-wrestling crowd react to your bold hairstyle choice?
Oh, man. I would usually try to kayfabe it, and I when I'd go out in public, I'd tie it back, or if I'd go out, with my friends and stuff, I'd wear a hat. One time I made the mistake of not doing that, and I got hounded for the entire night, man. Like I had my mullet down and handlebar mustache. They were out and flowing and ready to rock, and I had people coming up to me constantly and taking selfies, not even asking permission. I had girls coming up and just grabbing my hair and like, look, it is real. And they'd come and take pictures with me and stuff. And I was like, oh my, and my friends, they thought it was hilarious. I'm like, never again am I doing that. This is not coming out. I'm wearing a hat, tying it back. Next time we come out and forever. So it got me into some interesting situations. That's for sure. It's actually a funny story. Sorry to cut you off. Funny story. The very first time I was in TNA. I was there. I met one of the first times. Tara was there, Victoria, and she. I was in the makeup room for some reason because I was talking to ODB about something we were going to be doing, and she goes, "Oh, are you coming in to get your hair done?" And I said, "What do you mean?" She goes, "Are you going to get your extensions in?" And I said, "What are you talking about?" And I undid my hair and brought my mullet down. She goes, "Oh my God, it's real." And she thought my mullet was actually fake. She thought it was. She thought I got extensions put in. I was like, "No, honey, this is 100% authentic." So.
Well, I was just going to say it's good that now you don't have any other really outrageous hairstyles or a big giant beard on your face or anything right now, right?
I did. I moved all the hair that was my flowing locks in the back. The party that was going on in the back, I brought it over to the front and brought it over to the chin.
Awesome.
So the party's not in the back. The party's on the chin now.
That's awesome. Now, we mentioned you spent 16 years on the road as a professional wrestler. Looking back, what are some of the things that you've already accomplished in the wrestling business that when you first started, you kind of set as goals maybe?
I think about this. I'm not a huge goal setter in that I'm not a planner. I'm not a type A personality. I'm married. I have 2 kids, but I never set out I gotta make sure I'm married by this time, and I want to have 2 kids by this age and stuff like that. I've never been like that. I just kind of go with the flow. So when I started to wrestle, my goal was just to wrestle. I loved it, and I'm like, if I can just wrestle a match, that would be awesome. Because wrestling looks like a lot of fun, and I've always loved it. It'd be really cool to just wrestle. And that was my thought process. I never got in there thinking, I want to wrestle for the WWE someday. I really have to make it to WWE. That wasn't on my radar. I was quite small when I started. When I started to train, I was like 150 pounds, soaking wet. I was very small, and I just never even thought about WWE being an option. And then when I started getting in shape, and I started having people telling me, you should start sending videos and try to get booked in the WWE or try to get dark match or something, I hadn't even thought of it. So when I wrestled in the WWE for the first time, my very first tryout was a dark match in Buffalo in front of 15,000 people or whatever. It was awesome. And I wrestled the next night on SmackDown, my second time in the WWE, the second day there, trying to get a tryout. I wrestled Kurt Angle, and I was on TV, and I was just it was very surreal. And I just remember going home after those 2 days and going, what just happened? Never thinking that wrestling on TV would ever even happen. But then that's when, after that experience, I realized I can do this. And I thought I wasn't maybe good enough or big enough to belong there. And when I went there and did it, and it went so well, I realized I do belong here. I am just as good as these guys. I should be here. And then it really changed my perception, and I started to work even harder. And then the goal became to get a contract with the company. So when I got the contract with TNA and started to wrestle and be on TV regularly, that felt good. I was proud of that. And my goal now, and always has been, is to just be a wrestler, make a living being a professional wrestler. That's always been the goal. I'm not in this to be a billionaire. Definitely not in this to be famous. That's not why I became a wrestler in the first place. I just want to be able to be a guy that can say, I love my job. Most people cannot say that they love their job. And I love wrestling even more today than I did when I got into it 15, 16 years ago. I love it even more now. So if I can do wrestling as a job and be able to say that I love my job, man, I'm I'm doing better than most people.
Awesome. Now, other than Lex Luger, most wrestlers are not the total package. But with that being said, what do you consider maybe your biggest strength and your biggest weakness in the world of pro wrestling?
I think something that I've always been told from others, I guess the only way I can think of my strength is being told from others is I'm able to, I've told a number of times, I'm able to draw people into what I'm doing. So whether that is just doing some little funny skit in the ring, or having a 60-minute match, which I've done, I'm able to draw an audience into whatever it is I'm doing. I'm not really sure how. There's no secret formula to it. It's really hard to teach that. I think it's just been something that I'm blessed with and was born with. I'm able to do that. So that's a strength. And weaknesses, I mean, let's be honest here. I don't think I have any of those.
That's awesome.
Perfect.
Now, I'm keeping that because I don't believe it either. But when you aren't wrestling, what are the obviously you said you have a wife and kids. What are some of the things that you like to do? What are your hobbies outside of the world of wrestling?
About 5 years, I got my very first motorcycle, and I discovered motorcycling, and it's something I always wanted to do when I was a kid. And growing up, my dad had a bike, and I always wanted a dirt bike when I was a kid, but I could never afford it. And then couldn't afford it when I was a teenager. I just needed a vehicle, so I never got to have a bike. And my awesome wife, after we got married, we needed a second vehicle. And my wife actually suggested, well, why don't you get a motorcycle for your second vehicle? You've always wanted one. And boys, that's when I knew I made the right decision to marry my wife. She was a keeper. It was her idea for me to get a motorcycle. So I went out and got one. And man, the very first time I rode on my motorcycle, it was actually very similar to my very first wrestling match. After my first wrestling match, I came to the back of the curtain, and all I could think of was, when can I do that again? It was so amazing, and the feeling and rush I got from it, I just wanted to do it again as fast as possible. And after I got on a motorcycle and rode down the road, and then turned around and came back and parked at my driveway, I had that same feeling. I'm like, when can I do this again? I don't want to get off this thing. I want to be on it all the time. And that first year I had my motorcycle, man, I was on it every day for hours. I was on it all the time. So that's something I've fallen in love with for sure. Awesome. And then other things, other stuff that is wrestling related stuff, hobbies that I have to do, like weight training and athletics, things that keep me in shape and ready for wrestling.
Awesome.
Lightning round.
Who'd win in a fight, Joe Dirt or Cody Deaner?
Oh, Cody Deaner would totally whoop Joe Dirt's ass. I mean, Joe Dirt, he's probably pretty dirty, but he's not jacked or in shape at all. He's probably shifty, but no, I could take Joe Dirt, especially now that I don't have a mullet. I could I'd wrap my hands around his mullet and pull him down, knee him in the head a few times, and we're good to go.
Wow, that was violent, but
no. Sorry, I'll be quicker next time.
No, I'm just kidding.
This is much of a lightning round. I'm describing how I'm going to destroy Joe Dirt.
Hey,
I'll be quick on the next one.
I appreciate the answer for sure, but okay. Who is the better carny, Cody Deaner or Kizarny?
Ooh, I know Kizarny quite well. He's a Canadian boy too.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and I've wrestled him a number of times. So we're different kind of carnies. I'm the kind of carny that's going to, when you try to throw the ball into the basket it's going to be impossible because I'm going to have a specific kind of ball that's impossible to land in the basket based on the angle that the basket's at. I'm that kind of carny. His Arnie is the kind of carny that is going to paint his face and take off his shirt, and you're going to be able to throw darts at his back, and he's not going to feel any pain. He's just a traveling freak show entity unto himself. So no better. No one's better. We're just different types of carns.
Okay.
All right. How about one word to describe Eric Young?
Oh, friend.
Okay. All right. Present company excluded. Best beard in professional wrestling.
Ooh. I gotta go with my friend. I gotta say Eric Young.
Okay.
All right. How about your favorite all-time carnival game?
Oh, the one I created when I was doing the Carney Cody Deaner gimmick. It was a game I created called Throw the Ball in the Bucket. And I would bring a kid into the ring and give them the opportunity to try to throw the ball in the bucket 3 times. And I'd be very nice about it. And they would come in and they would think they're going to win a prize. So they'd throw the ball once and it'd get in the bucket and everyone would cheer and we'd say 1. And then he'd throw it again and everyone would cheer. We'd say 2. And then their final throw, the 3rd time they throw the ball in the bucket, I pull the bucket away and say, kid, you missed. You suck. And then I turn into the dirtiest, meanest carny the crowd ever seen. And I get attacked by the kid's father. And, then chaos ensues. That happened a number of times, and that was always fun. So that's my favorite carny game for sure.
Awesome. Now, in the world of professional wrestling, social media kind of goes hand in hand with it these days. Where can people find you and everything you'll be up to?
Social media, I'm on Twitter and Instagram. Both of those are at Cody Deaner. I'm on YouTube. My YouTube channel is official Cody Deaner. If you just put in Cody Deaner in the search engine for YouTube, my channel will be one of the first 3 things you'll see. And you can get links to all of those things and my personal email for bookings and fans that get a hold of me. My public email is Cody_Deaner@hotmail.com. You can find all that at CodyDeaner.com, and links to all that stuff is there.
Thanks so much for joining us, and we really appreciate it, Cody.
I'm looking forward to, man. Everybody listen to this. Go watch the video we were talking about that I made on my YouTube channel. Follow me on Twitter. Follow me on Instagram. I'll be tweeting and Instagramming about the whole GFW weekend. So follow me on there. And thank you, guys. I appreciate this. This was fun. Let's do it again for sure.
And I want to throw a little props out to us that for 92 consecutive weeks, we've had guests after guest on our show. We kind of have our own little streak going, longer than the Undertaker streak.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. I'm glad that this streak will never be broken if I have anything to do with it. And unless we get Brock Lesnar on, and then I guess there's a chance it could get broken. But
it is unique. Unlike any other wrestling podcast that you guys or girls out there to listen to, we try to do something different. We are a wrestling topic show. We like to talk about wrestling topics instead of talk about the show that we just watched last night or whatnot. So we try to make it an evergreen show, whether you listen to episode 92, 83, 15, 16, 35, whatever show you pick. There's going to be a different topic on there. And Jonathan, I want to talk to you about loyalty today.
I'm a little bit nervous, but go on.
Oh, Jonathan, loyalty to a company. The most loyal stars ever, because throughout the history of pro wrestling, there have been many stars who have jumped ship, who have gone here, have gone there just for ratings or more money. But there have also been a lot of guys who stayed in their home, stayed in place, at least for a very long time. I think pretty much in the end, everybody either retires or quits or tries something at the end of their career. But for the most part, the most loyal stars.
You either die a hero or live long enough to see yourself. No. This is great because in professional wrestling, I think more so than any other sport or entertainment, you always constantly hear about,
rumors and people backstabbing, and I guess what they call it in wrestling is politicking to be the number one or whatever the case may be. So that's hurt a lot of people in the past, and this is really a tribute to those people who have stayed, maybe when the money hasn't been the best, or, stayed even though that they didn't have the top spot or whatever. And there's been a lot. It's really surprising when you think back at like WCW, WWF, ECW, even WWE, TNA, for instance. There's some people that were, tried and true to their brand, and they stayed no matter what. And I think it's really cool to look back at some of those people.
Yeah, and Jonathan, even as a wrestling fan, I think wrestling fans can't even stay loyal to this day because, as a wrestling fan, we love wrestling. So whether, WWE's coming in town or the local indie show down the street's having a show, we want to go to everything, Jonathan. I think that's what's great about being a wrestling fan is that, well, you can show loyalty for this and that, but I think we just, at the end of the day, we want to see everything wrestling, right?
And, what's great about living in the Northeast is that there's an amazing show almost every night. And
we're spoiled.
We're very spoiled. But, it's great to see that there is loyalty in this profession. A lot of people have probably been burned by some of these things that we're talking about, but there's some great ones, and I'm thinking right now of probably the one that may not be on everybody's mind, and that's gonna be
Jonathan. I'm on everybody's mind every day.
That's gonna be Poughkeepsie's own Tommy Dreamer. Tommy Dreamer, he's actually from Yonkers, but I'm just gonna say he's pretty much a mainstay in Poughkeepsie. Tommy Dreamer was in ECW pretty much from day one to when the doors closed, and there's a lot of stories out there about Paul Heyman not sending checks to people. There's a lot of stories about checks bouncing. There's a lot of stories about he was working with WWE, and Tommy Dreamer, if you look back, was a constant, and he stayed there, and he pretty much bled ECW and was there until the day it died, so much so that now he has his own promotion, House of Hardcore, which is still very ECW-esque. So even trying to get out of the business of ECW, he's still kind of stuck with it, and it shows too. And this kind of talks about, I guess, Tommy as a person. He can be on TNA one night, he can be on WWE the next, he can be, at his own promotion. Something about him lends people to just really like him, and I think it has a lot to do with that loyalty. He's never stepped out on anybody.
That's right, Jonathan. I think, a lot of people judge people by their character, and, I think loyalty has a lot to do with it, especially to a company to where, okay, of course there could have been a bigger paycheck if you went over here, or of course he could have got this if you went over there. But I think staying with the place that, made you that name, I think has a lot to say about it. And definitely Tommy Dreamer has one of those loyalty qualities into it. Jonathan, even another big name I think has to come out there is the Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels. Now this guy not only stayed with the company that made him through the thick of it or whatever, but he also stayed in the Monday Night Wars. You know what I mean? So at a time where Ted Turner was writing checks for millions of dollars to do this and do that, Shawn Michaels stayed with the WWE. He transitioned from, that kind of PG era where it was Duke to Dumpster and all that stuff, to the birth of the Attitude Era. He really held his guns tight, I guess you could say. He really, I don't know any cool sayings, so if you know any cool sayings, let me know. But he really stuck through it all, through the thick and thin of it with the WWE, and I think he's probably one of the biggest names out there for loyalty.
You know what? And it's really sad too, because when the ratings and all the numbers started to come in when Shawn Michaels first had the belt, they were not as high as everybody thought. And so Shawn carried a lot of that. From what you read and what you heard in interviews and stuff, he carried a lot of that with him, and it became, it made him angry and all that stuff. But there could have been probably, I'm sure that WCW offered him, millions of dollars or whatever, but for whatever reason, he stuck with Vince. And, I would say for the most part that Bret Hart, we're going to have to, meet the quota for the show. Bret Hart was obviously one of those people that was very loyal to Vince too, so much so that he said, I don't want more money or anything, just match, just match me, what WCW or whatever, because he didn't want to leave. He wanted to stay loyal to Vince. So
yeah, and it's a shame to where when you have such a loyal person or a superstar or whatever in wrestling, and when he's actually giving you that ultimate, not that he didn't give an ultimatum, but just that to where, hey, just all you gotta do is this little simple thing. He's not asking for anything crazy. To where Vince didn't really care, you know what I mean? Like, he didn't really want to match it, didn't want to, and he just let him go. And that's the sad part, to where when you have a guy as loyal as Bret Hart was, to one little thing, to where that Vince let him slide out just from that instance. So I think it's a big low blow. It sucks, but unfortunately, there's a little downside sometimes to loyalty, to where I guess the person you work for doesn't really care, I guess, at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I mean, another really loyal person I can think of is what comes to mind to you whenever I say WCW?
Anything?
Yeah, just anything. What's
Sting?
Okay, that's exactly what I would fear. I would feel like that most people would say that. When you think WCW, some people may say NWO, some people may say Goldberg, maybe even Eric Bischoff or Flair. But, Sting has been constant. Sting was there, back when it was not WCW, really. It was,
and then the movie The Crow came out and it changed his life.
Yes.
But yeah, he's been there, man.
He's been there since the Jim Crockett days, if you will. But, Sting, thick and thin, stayed with that company, from the bleach blonde hair and face paint to the Crow days or whatever. He was there at the last Nitro,
match
at Club La Vila in Panama City. Sting is a consummate professional. Everybody says that he's really helped every company that he's been a part of. And, Sting, as far as WCW goes, I would say is like one of the most loyal in all of professional wrestling.
From WCW even to TNA, to where he also spent the next 10 years of his career at TNA. So it's, okay, granted, WCW shut down and he went somewhere else. Well, he actually was even loyal to that other place. So it kind of gives you the character that he is. And granted, he's in WWE technically right now, and 3 matches in and he's injured, career injury, I think, almost. But hopefully he'll still stick this out and be loyal to him, maybe.
Yeah, and I mean, in this business, a lot of words get thrown around. Back in the day, everyone's calling himself, the icon and all that stuff. But really, for WCW, I don't think that, personally, I think Ric Flair did more for WCW than Sting. But I think that Sting was the face of the company. So, when we have these conversations, people really, look at WCW and actually say, well, Sting, is the face of it or whatever. But, loyalty's a crazy thing because you never know what's going to happen. And if some of these people were given that option, like Hall and Nash, for example, they got talked into coming into WCW by a checkbook, basically. They said, here you go, or whatever. But had they said no and stayed loyal to WWE, who knows what would happen?
Exactly.
And I think that we're going to get into, this is foreshadowing is what we're doing. We're going to get into some of that here in a little bit. But Steve, do you have any more people that you can think of that are or have been like ferociously loyal?
I think the one of the biggest names right now would have to be The Undertaker. He started, well, he didn't start in the WWE, but he came into the WWE as The Undertaker, and still to this day is The Undertaker 26 years now later, in 2016. So, Jonathan, I think he's been there through everything as well, even more so than some of the others. But, talk about not jumping ship, not doing anything like that, always staying loyal, being, who he is in the company that created him, with that such a name. I don't think you can top The Undertaker's loyalty to a business too.
Yeah, and you know what? He was in WCW, and he was in he was in USWA, he was in a few other promotions, but once he hit WWF at the time and struck gold with the Undertaker character, he stayed put.
Yep.
And I mean, once again, I don't know all of the behind the scenes things that happened whenever Undertaker and the Monday Night Wars and all that stuff, but I would assume that people were trying very hard to take the top people from WWF. And we talked about loyalty as a person and just some of their qualities. Obviously, like after the Montreal Screwjob, a lot of people took sides, and I remember Undertaker being he wanted to know who was lying.
Yeah.
He wanted to know whose character was really strong. And I think that that's awesome. That speaks volumes not only for the Undertaker. You can like him as a wrestler, you can hate him as a wrestler or whatever, but he's stayed consistent as a person. He's tried to be the leader, a locker room leader and all that stuff. And it all chimes back to loyalty. I mean, I think that he's definitely one of the most loyal in WWF history for sure.
That is exactly, and like you said, with that loyalty, comes that responsibility, that locker room mentality of being a leader. It's great. It's a great example for a lot of other people too, to where they can look at the Undertaker and look, he stayed there through the thick and thin of it. He did what he was told. He did his job. He did it right. And look what happens for doing that. You get this amazing career out of it just for being as loyal as he was and not taking that easy money and leaving for greener pastures. And through the thin of it, he stayed with the right company because, they pretty much...
They won.
And, that makes him look even better for sticking with them. So it was good.
Yeah, one of my favorites of all time, I was also very loyal, is the great Damon Stryker. You may not know who I'm talking about.
Let me Google it.
Unless you remember Edge's really terrible start in WCW. He started out in WCW as Damon Stryker, didn't really do well, and then ended up in WWE. But once he hit WWE, he was there. Nothing really could stop Edge. And I remember when Edge first came in, there was the awesome part, him being in the Brood, and then his career kind of, I don't want to say plateaued, but it did in a sense that, people kind of lost interest in him. He completely reinvented himself. Mm-hmm. He became the rated R superstar. Then, fast forward a little bit, the whole thing with Lita and Matt Hardy. I mean, WWE probably was telling him, you need to go. He could have very easily went to a different company and been the hugest thing ever.
Yep.
And he didn't. He stayed very loyal to the company, and I think that means a lot. And he basically, I say, he started his company, or he started his career with that company, really, where the name recognition, all that stuff, and then he ended it with WWE. So there's really a lot more of these people out there. We could sit here and talk about them all day long.
I do want to point out one last person though, and that this person is has not only been loyal to the company, but he's also been loyal to his character.
Yes.
John Cena, Jonathan.
John Cena.
John Cena. Granted, he started as he was a Thugonomics, this and that, but I'm talking about recent Cena, the last 10 years, man. I don't know how long has Cena. He's been in there 10 years.
Yeah.
It seemed like 10 years, we could say, but the most recent Cena, the past few years, the good guy, hustle, loyalty, respect Cena. Talk about loyalty. The man has all these
in his mantra.
It is. He has, from all the Make-A-Wish, all the wishes that he grants, his character, to where everybody's like, oh, we want the Cena heel turn, this and that, and it's time after time, when you see what he does for kids and you see who his character, his being is, you just get that we're never going to see the Cena heel turn. And not only is Cena loyal to the WWE, but I think just loyal to his character, to where he doesn't need to be a bad guy. He doesn't need to do this and that anymore. Granted, he was a little bit of a heel, like I said earlier, but once that changed, once he picked up speed, notoriety, and all that other stuff, he finally found a good place. Not only for him, but in the WWE as a great superstar, a great character, of being that that future Hogan, that good guy that I honestly don't think we'll ever see turn bad. And I think that's saying something about not only the loyalty of being in the WWE, but just the character he has created.
Yeah, and obviously, I don't want to say that there isn't really any other options for John Cena.
And they also say never, but...
Yeah, well, I just don't want to say that he couldn't have went to TNA or whatever, because I'm pretty sure that TNA would have put every dime that they could have to get like John Cena there if something were to happen.
Oh, we just found this money.
But with John Cena, like, you think of The Rock, he is a huge superstar. And I don't want to say The Rock is not loyal to his wrestling fans or whatever, but he went on to greener pastures. He left wrestling, and he comes back every now and then, but, he goes and does these movies and stuff. John Cena is the guy that is in Raw in Green Bay on Monday night, flies to, California on Monday after Raw, shoots like 6 scenes for a movie all night long, flies to SmackDown on Tuesday. Like, this guy is like, if he wants to do something, he does it, and he's like full power. I don't know. He's like, he's
full power.
So he's he's just like most loyal, but also he's not going to leave the fans. And it's ironic because the fans like hate him. So it's like, he's the one that's like been there, house shows. If he walked into Vince's office tomorrow and said, like, I'm done with house shows, Vince would have to be like, okay. Like,
I know, he is like, all right.
But, like, he wants to be there. Like, every time we go to, like, White Plains,
he's the model
whatever,
employee.
like,
He's the guy that you want everybody else to be to model after.
Yeah.
And,
except Rick Martel.
Except Rick.
He's the model employee.
Jonathan will be here all week. Be sure to tip your waitress. That's it, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, that's exactly what we're talking about, this loyalty. I mean, I'm sure we missed some people out there, but that's the point. We want you to communicate with us. So, head on over to anotherwrestlingpodcast.com. Tweet us at @AWrestlingPod. Facebook us at Another Wrestling Podcast. Hey, go on Instagram, Another Wrestling Podcast. You can find some photos, some Throwback Thursdays on there. A lot of fun stuff on there, too. We got some Terry Tuesdays. There's a lot of unique things. So head on over to our Instagram page. Most importantly, subscribe to us on iTunes, Stitcher, Player FM, TuneIn, all that fun stuff. All can be found in one location. Jonathan, where is it?
That is anotherwrestlingpodcast.com.
That's right.
Coming February 13th at 7 p.m., we have a WWE legend, Hacksaw Jim Duggan, doing his 2x4 tour in Poughkeepsie. Guys, laughitup.net for more information. And if you like our show, make sure to check out some of our friends. Check out Main Event Marks. Head on over to Facebook.com/Main Event Marks. You can join Angry Cooter and his panel of smart Main Event Marks every Thursday at 9 p.m. for an uncensored show for the Marks, by the Marks.
That's right, and we are here to spread the wealth. If you love professional wrestling, we urge you to go over to pwpnation.com. PWP Nation is a wrestling media website and community that loves professional wrestling. They strive on creating an array of interesting articles and reviews on everything professional wrestling. Head on over to pwpnation.com.
Also, be sure to head on over to ProWrestlingSheet.com. It launched in August of this year, and it strives to report on the stories you actually care about in the world of professional wrestling, not just clickbait filling most news sites. Founder and editor-in-chief Ryan Satin previously worked as a senior producer for TMZ.com, where he has helped the company become a force in wrestling reporting, largely in part to his exclusive stories he landed on a constant basis. Make sure you head on over to ProWrestlingSheet.com.
Well, that's the show. We want to thank you all for listening today.
Every week we do this show free of charge for you, the fans.
If you're wondering how to repay us, we have just the thing.
Subscribe to us on iTunes, and while you're there, be sure to rate us and give us a good review.
And if you're looking for more information about AWP, then head on over to anotherwrestlingpodcast.com.
We are all over social media, and you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and more.
And if you're an AWP superfan, you can go show your support by going over to ProWrestlingTees.com and buying one of our official AWP shirts.
We couldn't do this show without you, so tune in next week for
Another wrestling podcast.